It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major burning issue of the day. Tonight, following allegations of illegal parties this time last year, is the government bruised or fatally wounded? To answer this, I'm delighted to welcome a man who has just announced on Twitter that he will be voting against the government's plans to roll out Plan B restrictions in England. The Conservative MP for Bassett Law, the king of the Red Wall Tories, Brendan Clarke-Smith, joins me now. Hi, Brendan.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for inviting me on.
Brendan, thanks very much for joining us. Why will you be voting against the government's COVID measures, the so-called Plan B, on Tuesday? The government would argue they're saving lives.
I think it's about proportionality, Mark. We've been through a lot with COVID. We've done things that we'd never normally have expected to do. It was very unpredictable, the virus at the start, whether that came from what we didn't know what to expect, then through all the lockdown measures, and then, of course, the vaccine, and seeing that as our way out, really. And, of course, we had Freedom Day when we finally got it, as we called it, and a lot of people very happy about that. And I think we all expected then that we have to remain vigilant, and we're not completely out of the woods. I don't think anybody's arguing that we are yet. But what we also said is with those restrictions, they've got to be justified. And I'm afraid from what I've seen so far, with the Omicron variant, we know very little about it, but so far, a lot of the effect of it seems fairly mild. We've not seen any deaths from it yet. Looking at things like hospitalizations, they're the things that I'd be looking at more than the spread, I think. So for me, I don't think I can, with a straight face, justify that we're ready to go into those restrictions again. And certainly at the time of the year that we're at, I think last year, a lot of people had a miserable Christmas. They're looking forward to it this year. A lot of businesses, it's a very, very important time for them as well. And I just think the timing's all wrong.
What do all of those Conservative MPs and Labour MPs that will be voting for these measures know that you don't?
I think people are trying to err on the side of caution, and I think it's natural to do that with what we've had in the last couple of years, Mark. But then I think, again, it's about proportionality. I don't think we can just say that we're going to put these restrictions on people again just in case it's worse than what we've experienced. I know they're looking at the effect of vaccines. I know that we've had some data that's just come out that's saying that some aren't necessarily that effective. But then, of course, we've had the booster campaign. They're saying that's up to 75% effective against a strain that so far seems relatively mild. And of course, the government have managed to vaccinate, along with the NHS, 22 million people now, which is quite an impressive feat. So vaccines, boosters, very much our way out of this. I think we're doing that. So for me, that's why at the moment I can't justify any extra restrictions.
I've always credited your leader, the Prime Minister, for Freedom Day. There was political pressure and scientific pressure to actually cancel Freedom Day. It was described by the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, as reckless, but cases fell. And there's some argument that possibly the disease spread in the summer months when the NHS was under less pressure. More healthy people got COVID and recovered, or may have been asymptomatic. And certainly England has been the envy of Europe in the last few weeks, Brendan. So why has the Prime Minister changed course in this way? Why has Mr. Freedom Day gone for Mr. Lockdown?
I think that was a really good decision in the summer. And as you've said, in the rest of Europe, I think a lot of what's happening there with lockdowns, with vaccine passports and so on, and really the rates going through the roof in some cases, not vaccinating as many people, we made a good decision there. So that was just so we could take pressure off the NHS coming into this winter. And of course, that was all part of the plan, really. And I think the opposition would have probably still had us in lockdown now, and we'd have never had that Freedom Day. And we've almost kind of been locked into this COVID socialism. I think that there's a bit of a habit with there.
So why is Boris going for COVID socialism now?
I mean, this is the thing about it. We have flu every winter, we have colds and so on. The NHS is always going to be under pressure in that sense. So I think there's a little bit of worry with the new variant. I completely get that. I think at first we said, well, let's wait and see. We've got, we're going to have another week or so before we're going to make a decision on it. Maybe I think we've jumped the gun on that. I think there's a little bit of worry. But again, for me, with what I've seen, there's just not the justification yet.
And why do you think the decision has come at this moment in time? Is it to take attention away from the allegations around illegal lockdown-breaking parties this time last year?
I think, unfortunately, you will have members of the public thinking that there's a link there between the two, and the timing's very, very unfortunate. Of course, this is the last week of Parliament before recess. With something as controversial as restrictions, then there's always going to be a little bit of tension there. And I can see, obviously, we've had a few difficult weeks. We had this, we had the Owen Paterson issue before that as well. So it's not been a great month politically. I'm not going to lie about that. It's incredibly difficult, as you would expect, really, from a government in mid-term. But obviously, from my colleagues, a lot of them want to do the right thing. A lot of the ones, I think, will be supporting the measures, believe they'll be doing the right thing as well. I wouldn't suggest anything else. But on this occasion, and this is the first time for me, Mark, I'm no rebel. I'm very, very supportive of the government, getting Brexit done and trying to tackle illegal immigration and all the levelling up agenda and so on. But I just think on this particular thing, it's time really to say, people have just had enough and just want to get on with their lives now.
They do. Quick word on the parties. Did you go to any of them last year?
I'm obviously not popular enough, Mark. Now, I spent a lot of time at home last year, as a lot of people did, really, with working from home. Of course, we were discouraged very much from going into Westminster unless it was necessary. We had things such as proxy voting. I really don't want to see that again. These 3-minute sort of monologues we were doing on Zoom rather than any real debate. And it's not really working from home. It's not really doing the job the way you'd want to be.
Brendan, do you think the parties happened? Do you think the parties happened? The Times claim up to 7 parties may have occurred.
I mean, there's a grey area here, Mark. I mean, I'll give an example. A lot of us have shared offices. We work very long hours. You have to stay on the estate and in the buildings for quite extended periods of time. And I'm sure some people have a drink when they've finished, as many
wine and cheese. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think most of us have got enough common sense to know with the grey areas whether something's a party or not. Has something been organised formally? Are there any people there that wouldn't be there normally? What are the numbers like? Is it sensible? And I think having a drink in your office once you finish work, I think most people will know the difference. But of course, the Prime Minister, the information that he's been given, he said that no rules were broken or so on. Has that information he's been given, has that been reliable? We don't know that. Obviously, the Prime Minister wasn't there. I wasn't there. And he's relied on information given to him by other people. Now, if that's wrong and it subsequently turns out that someone's given the Prime Minister incorrect information, then I'm sure heads will roll.
Brendan Clarke-Smith, thank you so much for your time. Wish you a good weekend. Brendan Clarke-Smith is the Conservative MP for Bassett Law, who will be voting against the government's plans to roll out Plan B restrictions. That vote is happening in Parliament on Tuesday.